Well, we've made our first cuts with our bandsaw, and I really want to underscore the thing about safety. Again, it's a great tool. It's a very safe one to use as long as you use proper precautions. And we encourage users of our equipment and any type of woodworking machinery to use proper and safe precautions. Make sure that you read, understand, and follow all of the instructions that are in the manual that came with your bandsaw. That's step number one. Step number two is become familiar with the machine itself. Step number three is learning some of the tips and techniques for using this piece of equipment. And if you're not sure about those, you can actually take a woodworking class at a local college program. You can take it from a local woodworking club, or even at some of the woodworking stores. They'll have individualized programs that'll teach you how to use the equipment safely. Make sure that you use tight-fitting clothing. You don't have loose clothing, no jewelry out. Make sure that you've got your hair pulled back so that it doesn't get into the blade. Make sure that your hands are always away from the blade. Make sure that you're not tired. Make sure that you're well rested when you're in the shop. Make sure you've got your bandsaw placed in a position that you've got plenty of room around it, no sawdust on the floor, and room to feed your stock into and out of the bandsaw. Most importantly, keep your blades sharp on the bandsaw. Keep your saw clean and in adjustment. Periodic maintenance will help you get the most out of your bandsaw. Let's go ahead and talk about a few of the maintenance items that you may want to do periodically on your bandsaw. The finest equipment only works good when you have the finest accessories with it. Keep your blades sharp. Buy a quality blade, don't buy inexpensive blades. The Resaw King blade that we were using for our demonstrations here today is a resharpenable blade. If it seems like it's not cutting well, send it in and have it resharpened. Periodically, inspect inside the cabinet, both top and bottom, for any loose debris, sawdust buildup, and items you may want to lubricate. Periodically, you'll want to go through and apply some grease to the threads for the tensioning mechanism, for the rack and pinion here on the upper guide post. Check to make sure that the bearings are tight and that they're not losing grease. They are a sealed bearing and they don't require maintenance, but periodically give them inspection and grab the wheel to make sure that it doesn't have excessive play on the shaft. In the lower cabinet, do the same thing. Make sure that you've got the bottom cabinet free of any type of sawdust buildup. If you have a buildup in here, it's going to swirl up and come up into the top cabinet and cause you problems. Periodically inspect and adjust your belt. The belt should have about a 1/4 inch deflection on it. It comes preset from the factory. If you need to adjust it, there's a couple of adjusting bolts on the back here. Loosen up the pivot bolt and then the adjustment bolt, tighten the motor, and then re-tighten the bolts. Check your belt. If your belt is frayed or cracked, replace your belt. There are instructions for replacing the belt in the owner's manual. The other thing to look for is to make sure that your wheel brush is properly adjusted and cleaning off the lower wheel. Since this is the drive wheel that drives your blade through the cuts, it's important that this wheel is clean and maintained. This brush will go through and scrub off the surface and make sure that your tires last the longest time possible. The ceramic guides on your bandsaw are good for a long time. They're very hard and durable materials, but you do want to take care of them. Make sure that your guides don't encroach forward into the gullet or up into the tooth of the blade. If they do, you can damage your blade and damage the ceramics on the saw. Now, the individual ceramics are replaceable. They're held in place with gel super glue, and you can get replacement ceramics from your authorized Laguna dealer or from Laguna Tools. Periodically, about once every 8 hours or so, you want to loosen and rotate the thrust bearing so that the back of it doesn't get scored too deeply. And while we're on the subject of bandsaw guides, the ceramic guides will produce a little bit of a fine spark from time to time. You'll notice it more when you have a brand new blade installed or when you've adjusted the guides for the first time. That'll diminish as you cut a little bit more. The 1412 bandsaw comes with a nice totally enclosed fan-cooled motor. It's 1 3/4 horsepower. It's sealed. It has a fan on the back to keep it cool, but every so often you want to get back here and check and make sure that you don't have a buildup of sawdust on your motor. If so, you want to go ahead and blow it off. It requires no other maintenance other than that. Now, to take good care of your bandsaw and your blades and the tires on it, at the end of each shift, go ahead and take the tension off of your bandsaw blade. That'll keep good care of the blades. It'll take the compression off of the tires, the compression off of the spring, and it'll make your bandsaw and your blades last long. The nice thing is, with the handle in the low position here, when you're standing in front of the saw, you'll see the handle down. You know that the tension is not on, and you won't use the saw. Simply reapply the tension before you make your first cut. The bandsaw truly is one of my most favorite tools in the shop, and the reason I like it so much is the wide variety of cuts that I can do. I can do rips, cross cut, resaw. I can cut circles, detail shapes, miscellaneous curves. And the reason I can do so many types of cuts is the wide variety of blades that you can install on your bandsaw. Now right now we've got a 3/4 inch Resaw King blade on there, and that's perfect for doing straight line, smooth finish resaw cuts. If you're just breaking down wood down to manageable size and you're reclaiming lumber and you might hit a rock or a nail that might be embedded in the wood, put a less expensive blade on there. You can get a standard 3/4 inch blade for a lot less than the Resaw King blade. If you're doing detailed shapes, curves, circles, puzzles, rocking chair rockers, you'll select a much more narrow blade. This saw will accept from a 1/4 inch blade all the way up through 3/4 inch. If we remove the side blocks and put on the optional cool blocks, I can go all the way down to a 1/16 inch blade. Now when you're handling your blades, one of the things you want to do is to learn how to coil and uncoil a bandsaw blade. Now uncoiling them is pretty easy. Coiling them back up is a little bit of a trick. Let me uncoil this one and then I'll show you how to coil it back up. Be careful when you uncoil the blade. Sometimes they can spring out. It's really not a bad idea to have safety goggles on and sometimes gloves so you don't cut yourself. Now as I uncoil the blade, I mentioned this earlier, you want to make sure that the teeth are pointed down on the left hand side so that it makes the cutting action. There is a possibility that when you're uncoiling the blade that it can be flipped inside out. And by inside out, I mean just that the teeth on this side could be pointed in the up direction, and if that's the case when you uncoil it, simply just take the blade, flip it inside out, and you'll be in the right position to make the cut. Now when you're handling blades, it's nice to kind of keep them long if you have them on and off the saw quite a bit. If you're storing the blades, it's nice to store them in these nice compact coils. In order to recoil a bandsaw blade, there's a few different techniques, and these are covered in the owner's manual. It shows you 2 or 3 different types of techniques. The technique that I like to use is simply like this. I'll take the blade, teeth facing away from me, and I'll hang it on my hands. I want to have my palms up, my thumbs out, about shoulder width apart. I'll go ahead and grab the blade and let the far end of it droop a little bit. Now with that far end drooping, I'll go ahead and bring my outer hands together, and this will start to form 2 loose coils up here at the top. One coil, the second coil, and then the third coil on the bottom. I'll lift it up and I've got it. It takes a little practice to do it, so don't be afraid to try it a few times. Get familiar with how to handle your blades. Again, hands out, palms up, thumbs out. Let the far end droop. Bring your hands together while you're grasping the blade and lift it up. And that's the easiest way I've found. There's a few other techniques that work better for some people in the owner's manual. Read through it, practice it, and it'll become very easy for you. If you're watching this video this far, it means you're probably the proud owner of a Laguna 1412 bandsaw. And everyone here at Laguna Tools wants to thank you for your purchase. This machine is available exclusively from Laguna dealers, and you can purchase accessories for your bandsaw and blades at your authorized Laguna dealership. If you need any assistance on your bandsaw, you can refer to the owner's manual, or you can give us a call at 800-234-1976. You can speak with our customer service department that can walk you through aspects of getting the most out of your bandsaw. If you're looking for any other equipment, go to our website at lagunatools.com and you can have a look around for blades and accessories for your saw or other equipment for your shop. Thanks again for your purchase.